Our Mass this morning, as I have said, is dedicated to our soldiers. I'm sure many of them, if not all, are young, who perished in the plane crash in Sulu last Sunday. This is the only thing that we can offer to them, our gratitude and our prayers. I'd like to speak about the threefold activity which is the essence of the life of Jesus. What do I mean by the threefold activity that describes the life and mission of the Lord? Number one, Jesus is a herald. Number two, Jesus is a teacher. And number three, Jesus is a healer. Allow me to say a few words about each one of these, the threefold activity that will capture the real essence of the public ministry of the Lord. Number one, Jesus is herald. Who is a herald? What is a herald? The herald is the one who brings a message from the king. Jesus is the one who brought a message from God. The duty of the herald is to proclaim certainties. Preaching, like what I am doing today, must always be the proclamation of certainties. Whether we admit it or not, today we live in an age of uncertainty, an age when people have ceased to be sure of anything. Jesus is the herald from God who came proclaiming the certainty by which people live and the certainty that God still cares. Number two, Jesus is teacher. It is not enough to proclaim the Christian certainties and to let it go at that. We must also be able to show the significance of these certainties for life and for living. The importance and the problem of this lie in the fact that we teach Christianity not by talking about it, but by living it, by putting it into practice. It is not the Christian's duty to discuss Christianity with others. It is a Christian's duty to give witness to what Christianity teaches. And in this sense, Jesus is a teacher, and we are also challenged to become like teachers. Number three, Jesus is also a healer. The gospel that Jesus brought did not stop at words. The gospel that Jesus brought was translated into action. The gospel shows that Jesus spent more time healing the sick, feeding the hungry. The mute can talk again, the deaf can hear again, the blind can see again, the paralyzed can walk again, the hungry can eat, and he comforts the sorrowing. And he did many other things to show that Jesus is basically a healer. He turned the words of Christian truth into deeds of Christian charity. Similarly, we are not truly Christian until our Christian faith results in Christian action. These, my dear friends, consists of the threefold activity of the Lord during His public ministry. Jesus is herald, Jesus is teacher, and Jesus is healer. I would also like to say something about the last 2 or 3 sentences in the gospel reading for today, when the Lord said to the disciples, "The harvest is abundant, the workers are few. Ask the master of the harvest to send out workers for his harvest." In our Mass today, we will also pray for an increase of vocation to the priesthood and to the religious missionary life of the church. Our Lord continues to call men and women. Our Lord needs men and women in order to assist Him. When He was upon this earth, the voice of Jesus could reach only few. Our Lord was never outside Palestine, but there was a world that was waiting. Our Lord wants that other people hear the good news of the gospel, but they will never hear unless there are people who will tell them. Our Lord wants all people to hear the good news, but they will never hear it unless there are those who are prepared to cross the seas and mountains and bring the good news to all creation. My dear friends, at this point, allow me to invite young men and women to respond to the invitation of the Lord to the priesthood and to the religious missionary life. When I was younger, many years ago, I felt the same attraction to the priesthood and to the religious missionary life. To make the long story short, because I am not supposed to preach about myself, I just would like to say that I joined the SVD in 1977. I pronounced my first vows in 1979, my perpetual vows in 1985, and my ordination also in 1985. Come to think of it, for many years, for hundreds of years, the Philippines has been a recipient of missionaries coming from other countries, coming from Europe, coming from America, coming from other destinations or other places in the world. From being a missionary, from being a recipient church, we have now become a sending church. And this is related to the theme of 500 years of Christianity in the Philippines. We are now challenged because we are gifted to give. For your information, the SVD to which I belong and that administers Christ the King Mission Seminary, we have produced more than 500 Filipino SVDs since the SVD came to the Philippines in 1909. The Philippine SVD has sent almost 200 of these Filipino missionaries in different parts of the world, in all the continents. They are in Africa, they are in Americas, they are in Europe, they are in Asia, they are in Australia and Oceania. These are the divine word missionaries, preaching the gospel in all the world, preaching the gospel where the gospel has not been fully preached yet. But we need young men to respond to the same call of Christ. We also need your prayers for these young men, especially those who are still under formation, for them to continue to be generous to the invitation of the Lord to offer themselves in the service of the church. And you must have noticed that during the past months, I have always been appealing for financial help for our seminarians, because this is part of our need to train young men to become divine word missionary priests, brothers, in the future. We need your financial support. We need your financial help so that we can continue to train them and form them to become the men that Christ wants them to be. I remember St. Paul, who said it beautifully in his letter to the Romans. But how can they call to God for help if they have not believed? How can the people believe if they have not heard the message? How can they hear if the message is not proclaimed? And how can the message be proclaimed if the messengers are not sent? How beautiful are the feet of those who preach the gospel of peace, of those who bring glad tidings of good things. My dear friends, in our Mass today, we will not only pray for our soldiers who perished in that plane crash in Sulu last Sunday. We will also pray for more generous and happy young men to respond to the invitation of Christ to become divine word missionaries. We need your prayers and we need your financial support.